Jonathan Simpson is an associate in my team, and I am now going to deal with some questions that have come in live. So Johnny, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, good morning everyone. So we've got about 10 minutes here just to crack through a number of the questions that have come through live this morning. A lot of them have been covered, which is great. So we'll try and focus on the ones that are maybe a little bit different. So we've got one here. I was about transferring from to a new accountant, and apparently 6 staff didn't get put through on the furlough scheme, and 4 did. So what can you do to appeal, as they've all been employed for 9 months? We have touched on this to an extent. Unfortunately, you can only claim for employees for 1 period once. So at the minute, there's no recourse in the scheme to go back and put through another claim for that period, or to enhance any claim for a further period to cover what had been underclaimed. So that is an unfortunate reality of the system as it currently exists. It's a simple system in order to get this up and running, so it just doesn't have that functionality yet. The main thing will be to liaise with HMRC on that, I think, going forward, to see if there's any scope, perhaps to offset that, as Gareth mentioned earlier, against end of year tax returns or VAT. So, I think that's the reality with that particular situation. Next question. On the minimum 3-week period, does an employee taking holiday within the furlough period break the 3-week period? It's an interesting question. The guidance, as it's framed, it is fairly clear on this, that holiday can be taken whilst on furlough. So it doesn't imply that taking holiday will break a period of furlough, for example, meaning that you need to keep an employee off for an additional period of time to make up the 21 days or 3-week period for furlough. So on the basis of the guidance, it would suggest that no, the minimum 3-week period, even if you take holiday during that period, is still met. I may need to reduce hours worked for my employee because of lack of income when lockdown is lifted. Should I start discussing this with my employee now? So I think that's asking about the need to reduce an employee's hours post lockdown, presumably as an alternative to redundancy. Yeah, we've dealt with that to an extent. I think, yes, we should start discussing these issues with employees in consulting now, and particularly as we get more detail as and when the furlough scheme will end, or continue on a modified basis, and what that will mean for individual businesses. Decisions will need to start being taken on that, and consultation should commence. Gareth, have you any additional points on that type of scenario?
No, I think that's covered it.
Yeah, so if less than 20, if an employer has less than 20 employees, how long is the consultation period? So the periods that are set out in statute for consultation refer to collective consultation, where there's 20 or more or 100 or more employees. So those periods, such as the 90 days for 100 or more, don't apply when there's less than 20 employees. Instead, an employer must undertake reasonable consultation and act reasonably in terminating an employee on the basis of redundancy. So any consultation period must be of sufficient length so as the consultation is meaningful and reasonable. As ordinarily, you would expect that would last for a few weeks at the very least, ordinarily in around 4 weeks, depending on the the actual numbers and the pools for selection, and looking at various aspects of application of selection criteria, for example. Can I furlough an employee for a period, then back to work, then furlough again if necessary? Yes, we covered that. Yep, you can do that, as long as you bear in mind the 3-week period and all the necessary criteria around consents. If an employee takes leave during furlough, does the employer pay 100% pay, or can holiday pay be made using up of 80% furlough pay and 20% top up from employer? Yes, the second there. So holiday, if annual leave is taken during furlough, the grant, the 80% grant, can still be used towards their pay. It's just that in terms of the requirements for holiday pay under the Working Time Directive, 100% needs to be paid. So that top up will need to be made. So, okay. What if being made redundant and forced to use all holiday leave to avoid recouping out of termination, so to benefit the employer and penalise the employee financially? So this looks at making an employee take holiday during furlough, and then the obvious knock-on impact there for an employee if they're terminated on the grounds of redundancy, and obligations on an employer at that stage to then pay for any accrued but untaken holiday. So in those circumstances, if the holiday has been used and paid at 100%, there would be no entitlement to any accrued but untaken holiday, to the extent that it has been used prior to termination. If it hasn't, there may be some additional payment. But that's Gareth made the point around how this is dealt with in terms of accrued to date, as opposed to using up the full year's entitlement during furlough, and needing to be careful around that. And I think that would be something to be careful about in taking any approach to request employees to use annual leave. Do employees transferred under TUPE require to give us consent again if the old employer got consent? Yeah, it's an interesting one in terms of the operation in TUPE, and it was a grey area that has now been clarified under the guidance in terms of the application of the scheme to employees who have been TUPE'd. In terms of the principles under TUPE and the rights of employees and protection of employment, anything that's been contractually agreed prior to transfer will be maintained after transfer. So my view is that the consent prior to transfer is probably sufficient, as long as it covers the period of furlough in question. If, for example, it was just for an initial period of 3 weeks and then that period ends, you might need to revisit it and get a fresh consent, but you need to look very carefully at the consents that had been obtained to make sure that they will continue to apply during the period of furlough that's continuing. If we reduce hours for employees, can we treat different departments differently? i.e. we might need to sales staff to generate sales, but production is only needed when we have orders. So I'm assuming that's a question about post the scheme, whenever you're back in and you have employees on reduced hours, as opposed to being off work on furlough, as we can't claim for employees under the scheme if their hours have been reduced. But that might be a legitimate business decision to take, and something that should be consulted on with employees about their work going forward. It may be the case that if at present you still need employees working and agree with them that they will work on a reduced hours basis, but other staff can, in certain departments, can be furloughed because they're not needed in the business at present, and that might be a situation where you rotate around furlough to make use of the scheme at present. Okay, I think we're coming. We'll just have time for maybe one last question before we wrap up. Trying to get, if 50% of holidays is taken, does the employee pay top up to 100% of the weeks to the 80% of the remainder? I think we've covered that one in terms of the top up. Yes, so you need to top up to 100% of pay during any period of annual leave. I think we'll wrap up there. And Gareth, have you anything else to add, or we'll hand back to Rodney?
No. Look, it's just to acknowledge that a lot of the questions coming in are becoming quite specific to individual organizations. And the true way to answer that is to bear in mind that all the other employment principles still apply. Start with the contract of employment, then look at all the communications issued back and forth, and then apply the JRS scheme. The JRS scheme is new, it will not be perfect, but there's an awful lot of misunderstanding around it. And unfortunately, some of the poor comms about it have given employees a false sense that it's actually far more generous and it's far wider application than it does. The employer still controls it. The government guidelines are in place, but fundamentally, the employer should be confident in doing what it needs to do and make the decisions it needs to take to right size the business for the future and to make sure that the business can continue and will survive. The JRS is a lifeline for businesses who are facing difficult times. It is not a replacement of business decision-making skills. It is not a replacement of all pre-existing employment law principles. So use it wisely, but ultimately we're trying to preserve businesses for the future. And if that means making hard decisions and telling certain classes of employees information that they don't want to hear, really that's tough. But we're trying to preserve for the future. Use this scheme as best we possibly can for as long as we can, but we can't keep our blinkers on. We have got to look to the future and plan and communicate and consult accordingly. But that's all, Johnny and I really wanted to get across. Thank you for the questions and thanks to INI for the opportunity. So we'll hand back to Rodney now.
Okay, thank you very much. That's our webinar almost finished for today. I would like to thank Gareth and Jonathan for their presentation. The guys have tried to get through as many of your questions as we could, and we hope you found the session useful. If we were unable to get to your question today, we continue to update our business website, nibusinessinfo.co.uk, with the latest government advice, guidance and FAQs. If you'd like to receive the latest news from nibusinessinfo.co.uk, please sign up for their email newsletter on their website. We're also going to be holding another webinar on director's duties and your legal responsibilities on Thursday, the 14th of May at 11 AM. You can find a link to register for this on the events section of our website at investni.com/events. And if you'd like to be notified of InvestNI news, support and events, then ensure you sign up for our 2-minute update email newsletter on our website at investni.com/newsletter. Today's webinar will be made available on the investni.com website next week. And I would like to thank you all for your time today. Stay safe, and I hope you all have a very nice bank holiday weekend. Goodbye.